Today we will look into AWS pricing model. We'll try to understand how AWS basically prices its services. We all know that AWS is quite famous as one of the cloud services. There are many others in the market, but definitely AWS is quite preferred and heavily used in various industries. But with AWS, usually people get lost with how their bills are coming out and why. Even if you look at any of the services, there are not like one single item. There are multiple line items, and which makes it a little confusing to understand that how this whole AWS pricing model works. What we'll do in this is that we are not really going to look into an individual services, but what we'll do is that we'll try to build a framework. We'll look and then we will also see that how that framework applies to some of the representative services. And once we have that framework in place, it's pretty easy to understand that for a given service, on what dimensions AWS is charging. Okay, so let's start with. So the first thing which is very important from the AWS pricing perspective is what I call as configuration. It's also known as compute, but basically it tells you that what type of compute you are basically employing. So what it means is that let's take an example. If it is EC2 or it is RDS, then whether you are using a medium instance or a micro instance or a large instance, same thing goes here. Okay, so based on the class of the instance, so you would also see like T2, M2, which basically tells you that whether something is compute intensive or storage optimized. But based on that, the charges would vary. So this is one of the very, very important dimensions. Even if we go to the lambdas, then lambdas you can actually tell that whether you need 128 MB memory, or I think it goes up to probably the kind of thing, or 256 that you need for your lambda to run. So based on that, again your pricing will vary. Okay, then the next one is the duration. How long your services are running. So it's like in EC2 or RDS, and even in the case of Lambda. So what you can do is that if you are not using your server, you can put it in a shutdown state. You still pay for something, but essentially you don't pay. The cost is much lesser in that case, because then you are not actively using the service. Same thing goes with Lambdas. How long the Lambdas are actually run, that basically drives the cost that you will incur in your bill. Okay, and then there is another little bit important thing to understand is that you can actually reserve instances, especially in case of EC2 and RDS. So if you know that there is one server you are going to use for the whole year, you can actually reserve it upfront. The cost decreases pretty. It goes on the lower side, and also for services which are like one-off kind of thing, you want to do calculation, you can also go for spot instances, which basically where you bid for them. So what Amazon does is that whatever the spare computing capacity it has got, it actually puts it on bid. You can bid one of those servers, and they come pretty costly. But there are like certain things you have to take care of, because if the server cost goes higher than what you have bid, they may actually terminate it. Okay. Then the third thing to understand is number of executions. So in the case of Lambda, it's like how many times you are invoking a Lambda. That also drives the cost. So from the Lambda perspective, you have like duration, and you have like number of executions. Number of executions is also important in the case of, let's say, S3, okay, or in the case of even IoT, there are different parameters that would basically drive your cost. So how many number of times of Lambda you are invoking, or how many get and put request you are doing on S3, or how many times your MQTT the connections are being made. So all those things also drive the pricing model of the AWS. Okay. Then data transfer. So data transfer basically means that how much data is going in and out. This is more important in the case of like EC2 and RDS. So how much data is coming in and how much data is going out. Okay. So generally AWS doesn't charge us for the data coming in, but it charges for the data coming out, and it's usually in GBs, in the unit of GBs. So that also is another important thing that will drive your pricing. Then the fourth one is storage. So how much data at rest you are keeping. Again, in the case of RDS, how much database you have actually allocated. Same thing goes with EC2. There are like EBS volumes you can attach to EC2, but then they all basically make an impact to the cost in terms of the storage that you are handling. Same thing goes with S3. So how many data you are holding at S3, that basically drives the cost. Then, so these are what I call like the most important 5 parameters that would basically help you in understanding the cost model of different services. And then beyond that, there are certain more things which you also want to understand. So one of them is like monitoring level. So by default, AWS provides monitoring of these different services, but you can deploy enhanced monitoring, but that means more bills. Okay. And then there is something called as provisioned capacity. They are actually an extension of one of these things in some way, but it is just like that. For example, in RDS, based on the size of your server, sometimes your IOs are constrained based on the size. So you can do certain level of IO only, and after that what RDS will starts throttling it. But then what you can do is that you can provision higher level of capacity. It is true with like DynamoDB also. You can provision higher capacity for the number of units reads and writes, so that the end user gets a smoother experience. Okay. So hopefully with these set of dimensions and a good understanding of them, you should be able to get a good understanding of the pricing model of any of the services that you are employing for AWS. Apart from that, you can also set alerts on your billing in terms of like when the billing goes beyond certain thresholds, it can send you emails and those kind of things, which will help you in basically monitoring the pricing of your AWS bills. Okay. And then the AWS also comes with a nice S3 nice calculator basically, which can be used. So I have put the blog link under this video, where you can actually, in that blog, you can find the link to the AWS calculator, or you can just go and do a simple search also, and you should be able to get like that AWS calculator as one of the top links. Okay, so hopefully with this, you should now have a better understanding of how to make sense of the AWS pricing bills. Okay, thank you very much.